This is Jerry with Jerry's Retirement Wisdom. Today we're going to be refinishing this porch swing. It's overdue for freshening up, so we're going to go to work on it and we're going to sand it down and put some new finish on it today. To do that, we're going to be using some tools. We've got a quarter sheet sander. We've got a random orbit sander with 100 grit sandpaper. And we've got a Dremel multi-tool with a sanding attachment with a triangular sander. And hopefully those three tools are going to allow us to clean this swing up and get it ready for some new finish. I'm going to use an outdoor oil. I get that from Woodcraft Supply. And the oil is sort of a varnish oil combination. Puts a real nice finish on your swing. So we'll be using that a little later on. First thing we need to do is get this all sanded down. So let's get busy. One of the tools I'm going to use is a quarter pad sander. This one here is worn. We need to replace the pad on it, so I'm going to show you how to do that real quick. First thing we need to do is remove the old pad. Most of these sanders have a spring on each side, and you just loosen that and remove the old piece. And then this is a full sheet of 100 grit sandpaper. And an easy way to cut this isn't with a utility knife or anything. What I found is the easiest way to cut sandpaper is take a hacksaw blade and put that in there. And that blade will just cut that right through. When you use a knife, it dulls your knife for one thing, and the other thing is you don't get as good a cut, because you're cutting an abrasive material. If you go from the backside with your hacksaw blade and just pull that through there, you get nice quarter sheet sizes of sandpaper. So let's cut both of these so we have 4 pieces as we work here, and we don't have to keep coming back to cut more. Like I said, take a hacksaw blade and just pull it through there, and that'll do it. Then to reapply it to your sander, where this clip is released, just put one side in there. Keep in mind that when you flip it or turn it after you fasten this side down, you want the abrasive part out. Fold that over, go to the other side, tuck in the other side, and then tighten your clip on there. And there you go. You've got new sandpaper on your quarter pad sander, and we're ready to get started. To get busy, we've already replaced our quarter pad sandpaper. Our random orbit sander looks like it's still good to go for a little bit, so we won't do that yet, but here in a little bit we may have to replace some of that. And then lastly, we're going to use the Dremel multi-tool with a sanding attachment, and it uses a little triangular hook and loop attachment that will go on right here. That allows us to get into some of those tight places that you just can't get to with a random orbit sander or a pad sander. But to get started, let's move our sanders out of the way. We need to turn our swing up on its back, which is no easy task. This is a heavy swing. If you want to know how to build this swing, I wrote an article for Woodcraft magazine that gives you all the details, and you can actually download plans on how to build this swing. This design came from my wife's grandfather. I'll put the link in the description to the article. And to get started, we have these 7/16 nuts on the bottom of our eye bolts that the swing chains hang on to. We need to take these eye bolts out. That way when we sand, we don't have to sand around and make it easier. So we're going to remove those. Not necessarily the easiest task. but they'll come right out of here. These are made from stainless steel. Had these made special. My wife's grandfather, when he built his swings, used to take what was probably cold rolled steel, and he just bent them himself. But over the years, we learned that those will rust, and we actually put us on the floor one time because our steel eye bolts that were homemade rusted through and finally gave out. There's nothing worse than finding yourself sitting on the floor. As heavy as this swing is, someone could actually get hurt if you have a heavy swing, land on your heels if you didn't have to have your feet out when you sat on it. So I had these eye bolts made special when I wrote that article for Woodcraft, so they could offer those as an accessory that you could purchase. And I don't believe they're still available, but you can get these from a good fastener house, and it's basically a stainless steel eye bolt with a 1/4 20 thread on it, and they're about 20 inches long. The concept of the swing's really nice. Instead of hanging it off of a bolt through the arm or something like that, these bolts actually go completely down through the swing and through this bottom plate. That way, when you're sitting on the swing, you're actually being supported by two 1x pieces that go completely across the swing, and not just by the fastener that's bolted into an arm or the bottom of the swing. I find it to be a very safe and sturdy way to fasten those. I actually built a swing years ago and put a piece of flat metal across the bottom of there just to reinforce it. So that gives you a lot of options, but that style of support for a swing I find is very safe and very good way to do it. About got these off. The underside isn't really that bad on the swing because it's protected from the weather, so we'll probably sand and refinish what we can get to, and the rest will be okay because it's been protected from the weather over the years. But all the surfaces that are exposed need to be sanded and then refinished. Some people use marine varnish on these like you would use on a boat for wooden parts. That's a good finish. The thing I like about the outdoor oil product is if down the road it starts to fade and look a little weathered, you don't have to sand your swing completely down again. You just apply another coat of outdoor oil. It doesn't have to be removed in order to do that. So let's get this guy back up on its bottom. We've got those removed. If sanding bothers you and you want to protect your lungs, I'd recommend you use a fiber mask or a light mask. What I'm going to do, and the reason you won't be able to hear me while I sand that much, is I'm going to turn the fan on. That way I'm getting fresh air the whole time. Also, we're going to time lapse this a little bit so you don't have to watch me for a couple of hours as I do this. So we're ready to start sanding. I'm going to get busy here, and you can follow along while I sand this swing up. I'll pause from time to time if I need to let you know some important points, but we're going to get busy and see if we can't make something really nice out of this swing. What I'm doing here is I removed the old worn sandpaper. That piece wasn't fresh to start and didn't last very long. And there's holes in the sandpaper, and that helps you extract the sawdust into the capture bag on the sander. So it's hook and loop. You just peel it off, reapply it, make sure your holes line up, and we're ready to go. Again, it looks like there's one for the trash. These arms have seen a lot of years of sitting on the porch with that cup of coffee, so they'll probably be the hardest part to finish. So keep watching and we'll keep at it. Well, as you can see, what I've done is flipped over the swing, and I'm sanding on some of the slats starting in the back. And what I'm using is called a scraper. And what a scraper does is there's a big buildup of varnish on this swing from previous finishes, and that loads up my sandpaper, and I'm going to run out of sandpaper if I just keep sanding and trying to clean it off that way. So what a scraper is, it's a piece of metal, and it's got a bit of a burr edge on it, little edge, sharp edge to it. And what that does, that allows me to scrape, and I'll get loads of varnish off of the swing before I sand it, so that when I use the sander, my sanding paper doesn't load up. It smooths everything up after I'm done scraping. But you can see there's just loads of varnish on this swing built up over the years, and by scraping, I'm cleaning that off without loading up my sandpaper and wasting a lot of sandpaper. It's called a scraper. This one happens to say right on it, made in Germany. And what happens when these things finally get dull is you can put an edge on them by sharpening it, and then you take a burnish or a rod of some sort and you roll a hook on the edge of your scraper, and that's what's doing the scraping job. So it's called a scraper. Thought you might be interested, and it's one of the secrets to getting a nice sanded finish. So back to work. Well, we're back with Jerry's Retirement Wisdom. It's day 2. I've been sanding away here for hours. Pretty much got it as sanded up as we're going to get it. It's a 50-year-old swing, so no one expects it to be perfect, but it certainly needed cleaned up. One of the last things I'm going to do is take these used round sanding discs, and they're still good. Most of them were worn out on the edge. I'm going to wrap it around the block, and I'm just going to go along all of these flats on this swing and break that edge down. When you sand it, it sharpens it up, and it also kind of breaks the finish that's in between here that we can't get to. So if you do this, what it'll do is it'll make that edge roll over, and your finish will stick better to a rolled edge. A sharp edge won't hold finish like a rounded edge anytime you're painting or finishing something. So where this has gotten sharp, I'm just going to go along and real easy just work my way across all of these and make sure that there's no splinters sticking out and smooth them up. When I've got that done, I'm going to wipe it down real good. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to move this out into the yard to put finish on it. It's a pretty day. Stick with us and we'll finish this little bit of sanding and wipe this down with a cloth and maybe blow it off with the air hose, and then we'll get it outside and get busy on the finish. Cleaned up our swing. We did some final sanding on the edges of the strips, and then we blew it off with the air hose and wiped it down good. So really, I think the only thing left to do is put some finish on it. Well, as you can tell, we're back and we're not outside. As soon as I mentioned going outside, the sky clouded up out there and a few raindrops came along. So, you know, best laid plans. So what we're going to do instead is stay right here in the garage. I've got the garage door open. Once I finish talking and get to where I'm just putting the finish on, I'll turn the fan on. Hopefully that'll help blow the smell outside. This product is called General Finishes Outdoor Oil Clear. It's a penetrating oil. Basically it's oil based. It has an oil in it, and then it has a type of a varnish as well. So basically we brush it on and let it dry, and it soaks in real good after a few minutes and then leaves a nice finish on the outside. And like I said, once it dries, then it sort of fades. It doesn't really peel when it gets old, and you can come back with more and just brush over top of it and replenish it, and you don't have to sand it all down like I've had to do here. So we're going to get busy. We're going to put our outdoor oil on the swing here, and one of the first things we got to do is flip the swing over, because whether you're painting a chair or working on a swing or whatever you're doing, you always do it upside down first, and that way if you get any drips when you come to the front side, which is the visible side, you'll catch those drips. And if you wait till the end and do the back side, then you may get drips in front where it's seen everywhere. If you don't catch them, the thing, you end up with drips on the pretty side of your project. So whether it's a chair or a swing, we'll start upside down, and then we're going to flip the thing over. So first thing I'm going to do, we're not going to work out of the can. It's harder to dip out of your can. You should always use a bucket, like a quart-sized bucket, or in this case this is 2.5 quarts, and we're going to pour our oil in there. And as you can see, it doesn't need stirred. It's still dissolved, so it's nice and fresh. So we don't have to do any stirring. We can just get busy. The underside of this swing, parts of it were heavily finished by my father-in-law. He was at it on his porch, and so I'm not going to try to redo his work underneath. It'd be too hard to get to it to sand it and whatnot. So we're going to leave his work untouched, and all I'm going to do is cover these areas where I sanded it earlier, and hopefully we'll get a good result. As you can see, when you dip your brush, tap, and then spread it on. See a lot of people trying to dip and scrape their brush on the side. What's going to happen when you do that is you take all your finish off your brush, and you're constantly going back for some more. So when you dip and tap the sides, it leaves most of your finish with your brush. It just keeps the drips from happening. This swing was built by my wife's grandfather, this particular one, and it was on my in-laws' front porch for many years. This thing's probably 50 years old. I copied the design when I wanted to make a swing for myself, took a lot of trips out to look at the other one, and I made patterns out of cardboard, and it's a beautiful swing because of these slats. It has a sort of a rolled design that makes it very comfortable to sit on it. This one, and many of them I've built over the years, are 6 feet long from hooks to hooks, and I liked it because I could lay down on it and take a nap outside. And a lot of swings are 5 foot or even 4 feet, and that's not a possibility. But this thing, good size swing, and you can make it any length you want. All you do is vary the length of these strips. If you want a 4 foot swing, all the other parts are the same. You just cut your strips 4 feet long. And I actually had a lady I worked with ask me one time to build her a 7 foot swing, which I did. And I warned her, I said, you know, white oak and 7 feet long, that swing is going to be heavy. I wanted it for a front porch. It was on one of the main streets in our little town. Beautiful swing when it turned out. But I warned her not to load that thing up with 7 healthy adults. It might be way more than it could handle. And she assured me that she understood. Drove by her house one day, and it did not have 7 healthy adults on it. It must have had 10 or 12 of the neighborhood kids all piled on that big swing. I'm not sure it was not a testament of my abilities to build a swing, but at least it didn't fall to the floor. One nice thing about this finish too is where I've sanded, makes that wood look blonde. But as I put this finish on, it penetrates. It brings back that natural color in the wood. Really leaves a really pretty finish look. But as you can see, it really pretties up this swing. This swing is white oak, and like I said, it's a very old swing. This swing's 50 years older than one. And I can tell you, for its age, it was well kept by my in-laws. And of course, we live here in Florida now, so I want to make sure it's well protected from UV elements and whatnot. So, as you can see, it's really turned out pretty. So I'm going to pause right there and get busy and finish this, and then we'll be back and show you the finished product. Well, we've got our outdoor oil applied to our swing, and I have to admit it's looking pretty good. The only thing we have left to do now is to put the eye bolts in the ends of the swing to use for our swing chains, and we'll be ready to hang this thing back up. Eye bolt goes down through the arm. It's tight fit, you got to kind of screw it through. And it goes on down here to another hole in the frame. And it comes out the bottom. I'm using stainless steel fender washer and a lock nut. Like that, and we'll hold the screwdriver at the top and put our 7/16 wrench on at the bottom, and basically we can just screw this right through there, and it's a lock nut, so all I got to do is get it to protrude through the nut, and I'm good to go. That'll hang up. We've got 3 more of these to do. And there we go. 2 more and we're good. So this has been Jerry with Jerry's Retirement Wisdom, refinishing an outdoor swing. If you like our videos, be sure you like and subscribe, and we'll keep those videos coming. See you next time.